Okay, so here's another rant video that no one asked for and is potentially limited to a pretty small population of the world right now. And that is my take on the Lockharts, or originally known as the Lockharts of Levittown. Before we get into that, though, as you can see, I'm in a new position, a new location, if you will, compared to my last rant video on Zootopia. And I've just moved downstairs. I didn't like the quality of that video, so I actually have some studio lighting. I've had this lapel mic for a little bit, and I've had the tripod that you are sitting on right now. Um, I just, didn't put everything together. So before we get into it, let me give you a quick tour. These are my books and my magic cards. The Warriors, the first series isn't here because it's upstairs in that bookcase because I was actively reading it. I finished it, and so I'm taking a quick break from the Warrior series before I move on to the next ones. Over there are games that I haven't touched, and that includes some Tau figurines for Warhammer 40K, the Dark Souls board game that I've not ever once played. Munchkin's over there, but I've played a lot of Munchkin. Um, Millennium Falcon thing that I've never taken the edges off of. I actually just hung it up before I started recording. And National Geographic, old books, college junk down there, trash bag with clothes. Now that we have had our introduction to the space, let's get into it. So the Lockhorns first debuted, premiered, if you will, in September of 1968, right? Hold on, I need to get my handy dandy scroller here. That way I can look through my notes. Shout out to the dude who gave me this for Christmas back at my old job. It's a terrible, terrible mouse, mind you, but it works. Anyway, so it premiered in September of 1968 as a one-panel gag-a-day comic in the newspaper. It doesn't matter what newspaper it started in. I don't really care about the history of the comic, but more so of the history of who's in the comic, and that is Leroy and Loretta Lockhorn. So that being said, I will still give you just a little bit of history. It's just going to be pretty surface level stuff. So 1968, dude named Bill was like, boom, I'm going to make a gag-a-day comic, single panel, and it's going to be relatable to all the married couples.
Gnarly! Radical! Yeah! Totally turbulent, dude!
And so he did that from 1968 until 1988, which is when he passed away. But his wife, she's still doing it though. She's still making the dream a thing for some reason. Listen, I get it. I actually have no hate against the author and his wife. I don't know them. I've never looked them up. So I've got no reason to hold any disdain for them other than the fact that the Lockhorns are still being published and illustrated to this day. So yeah, the premise of the Lockhorns, you might ask? Well, if you've never picked up a newspaper in your life and moved it to the educational section, the funnies, or the comics, let me break it down for you right quick.
Let me break it down for you, Mark.
The Lockhorns depicts a married couple who are going through day by day in somewhat related situations to the common everyday person who is maybe middle class, and they detest each other, for lack of better terms. All the remarks that they make to themselves are like super snidey remarks, sometimes sarcastic, and at points just kind of mean spirited, for lack of better terms. So that's the overall premise of it, even though the Wikipedia says that Leroy and Loretta show, despite having some quips here and there, that they are still compassion lovers and whatever. I'm paraphrasing, of course. It wasn't that badly written. I'm bad at remembering things word for word. Okay? Get off my back, Mom.
Mom, I wish you'd get off my back.
With that being said, let's dive into what I have for visual media. Okay, so this first clip here, there's nothing over here for me to look at. In reality, I'm using my imagination. Okay, so this first snippet of the Lockhorns is the first documented panel that they ever did. So this would have been illustrated by Bill, and it depicts Leroy on the phone with his boss and Loretta doing her makeup. And the joke is that they don't get along with their boss, and his wife doesn't get along with his boss's wife. Somewhat relatable. This is not a terrible comic. It's one panel, gag a day. Really hard to mess this up. I mean, it's a pretty simple formula. So this isn't that bad. I think this is 1968. Yes. As time goes on, though, it seems like it becomes more directed at each other and more mean-spirited. If we take a look at this snippet from 1984, it's got some stereotypes in it, right? Loretta walks up to Leroy, who's chilling in his lounger, and she's like, "Hey, you've been under depositing, huh?" What does the joke is lost on me. I guess if I had to make up a premise in my mind, they have a shared bank account, which I think was relatively common, might still be common to this day in the more conservative households, where the man or whatever the primary breadwinner of the family has the account in their name, and then the secondary member of the house, the one who's primarily mostly at home, however you want to say that, the wife in this situation is using that bank account for everything else. Kind of weird expectation overall, in my opinion. But then, like, it kind of reveals something else about Leroy. Like, the dude's either has a separate bank account that Loretta doesn't know about. He's spending money that is supposed to go into the account, which I assume they use for living. And so, like, maybe he's gambling a little bit of the money or something. I don't know. Whatever 1980s humor and relatable situation this is, it's lost on me because I wasn't born until 97.
Nice.
Speaking of, like, Leroy having some maybe issues, if we take a look at this snippet right here, Loretta looks like she stayed up all night waiting for Leroy to come home, and Leroy comes home and he's got this entourage of drunken people with him. This is one of those things where I just like, how is this funny? It shows that Leroy is potentially like a raging alcoholic, at the very least, just a drunk. Um, and he has no regard for like the people living in his house, mainly his wife. Um, but then the second problem is that yeah, Leroy is with drunken people. That's already was an issue of its own. But if I'm not mistaken, that's a woman over his shoulder, and then another woman on his arm. Leroy, my guy, what are you doing? You have a wife. You literally have a wife, dude. Like, it's maybe one thing, but like this, you're drunk, they're drunk. This is not a good look. Not a good look at all. And then we have this one where Leroy is joking about, um, you know, getting a deal on a loan and might be able to afford that divorce. Dude, haha, divorce. That's funny. Um, I don't get it. It's lost on me. And maybe that's just that new woke mind liberal take.
Yeah, liberal, I'm liberal. And just wait till I liberal everybody.
But like, this isn't funny. It's kind of sad to see two people who are just sticking together for a reason I don't know, because they feel like they got nowhere else to go. Maybe like they're stuck in this toxic relationship. Beats me. It's not funny, in my opinion. So yeah, Leroy and Loretta. Leroy uh, potentially is spending money that is supposed to be for them living. He has a drinking issue and potentially crosses some relationship boundaries. I'm making assumptions here, considering the time and the type of humor that the Lockhorns normally exude. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are in somewhat of an open relationship, and Leroy was bringing over the polycule. I don't know. But yeah, so those are all the snippets I have, because number one, I didn't want to pay for a subscription to see all of the like more recent history of the Lockhorns, because I don't want to pay money to something that I don't really like. But number two, of the new stuff that I have seen both online and the newspapers, because I still read the comics and sometimes headlines that intrigue me. Um, it's the same thing. It's literally the same stuff over and over and over. So no more snippets of that. You'll see me adjust to the hopefully center of the frame. You've seen me adjust to the center of the frame. So like, we talked a lot about Leroy. Leroy has some problems, and there's a lot of other stuff where he's just like kind of harping on Loretta. There's one comic that I've seen where Loretta is at the stove, whatever she's cooking is smoking, and Leroy makes the remark of "What's for dinner tonight? Something brulee," because she's burning it. Like, I get the joke, but like, if she's so bad at cooking, why is she the one that's cooking dinner? You could cook dinner, Leroy. It doesn't have to be Loretta. And maybe there's a couple of comics where he does cook and then Loretta makes a snide remark. I don't know. Once again, I haven't read too many comics over the span of my lifetime. I just remember bits and pieces here and there, and also whatever I've looked up on the internet. But to be fair, Loretta is not a saint by any means. For the most part, Loretta is kind of depicted as stereotypical woman from the 1960s. She cooks. She cooks bad, I guess, is the better way to say that. She cooks bad. She spends a lot of time doing makeup, spends money, and only complains about Leroy. She doesn't have a whole lot of like depth as a character. On occasion, we will see other people that are not Leroy and Loretta talk, but they also just make snide remarks to those two. And I mean, it's frankly, it's deserved, but like maybe Levittown is just a town full of assholes, like just sarcastic assholes. Don't know. I've never been. I don't have any plan on going. Uh, if you're from Levittown, I apologize that the Lockhorns are depicting you this way. Let me know if you guys aren't assholes. I'll, you know, I'm just working off what I got here. Anyway, so with that being said, like Leroy is a POS, Loretta not as much, but still kind of a POS. And supposedly they go to marriage counseling. But if all they do is make like snide remarks 24/7, what is those marriage counseling sessions like? Like just the two of them throwing verbal jabs at each other, and then like the therapist sitting on the couch with like sweat pouring from his forehead, hoping that he can interject at some point. Yeah, it seems real nice. Leroy joked about it, but I mean this seriously. You two don't have to stay together. You could just leave each other, see new people. Like, you're in a toxic relationship, and Loretta, if he continues to like do that stuff to you, maybe just leave him. If you want to complain about him so bad, if you're not happy in your relationship, just leave Leroy, and maybe it'll be better for the both of you. Maybe you'll find someone who you actually enjoy and you don't want to complain about all the time, and maybe Leroy can like go to rehab and fix his drinking problem, and I assume gambling problem, because that seems like the type of person Leroy is, considering I did see a Halloween, funnily enough, a Halloween panel of Leroy in a Beetlejuice costume. No, somebody else was in a Beetlejuice costume talking to Leroy, and he was a bum in a barrel. And the dude was like, "Oh, I guess you're still coming over that stock advice I gave you in 2023." So like maybe bad investments, but the stock market is gambling, so a gambling problem. Leroy has a gambling problem. It's easy to say. You guys can go off and find people that make you happy, make yourselves better. Maybe leave Levittown, because once again, it seems like everyone there is just kind of an a-hole.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
And you could do better. You could find better places to live. Finland, I heard, is a great place to live. There's plenty of towns in Finland. And they've got great benefits and work weeks. So that is something that you could do. Overall, I don't know what the reading base is for the Lockhorns anymore. Like, the only people that I feel like might even be close to relating to this type of humor are like old couples, people who were alive in the 60s. That number's dwindling, but I mean, it's a demographic. And maybe people who are like the age of my parents, people born in the 70s and 80s. The humor hasn't really adapted too well. It's still Leroy and Loretta. It's still the Lockharts. It's still the same humor. I mean, they've added like more modern quips here and there regarding like cell phones and the internet and stuff like that. But it's still kind of the same base humor. And I don't know. There's nothing funny about being in a relationship that you're not happy in. Who wants to do that? I don't want to do that. So I don't know. I don't get it, but it's there. It is a comic that is one panel that has a gag that is supposedly funny to someone. Once again, I've got nothing against the authors. Bill and Bunny, but I also don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about Levittown. All I have to go on is Leroy and Loretta, and I can't stand either of them. And I can't stand of any of the people that is in Levittown depicted in the Lockhorns. So this has been a rant that you didn't ask for, that I did anyway, on a stupid niche thing that maybe people will relate to, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how to end this. See you.